So good morning listeners, and welcome to Come and See Inspirations, being produced here in our Come and See studio here in Ada, and it's the 8th of September, it's the 23rd Sunday in Ordinary Time. I'd like to especially welcome listeners who are housebound and lonely and struggling in some way today, and listeners who support us each week in prayer. We thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Our programme is broadcast on Sacred Space at West Limerick 102 FM at 10 a.m. and 11 p.m. each Sunday, and is available for playback and download on Come and See Inspirations. Also, all of our programs are available on our blog, SacredSpace102.blogspot.com. A little change going to happen to the blog these days, and Shane will be back to share some information on that next week. But in the meantime, if you want to contact us here in the programme, our text number is 087 6088 667. That's 087 6088 667. Or in fact, you can email us, and that's on SacredSpace102@gmail.com. Now, this morning, it's with mixed emotions that all of us here on Sacred Space FM, Sacred Space 102 FM, that's Shane and myself, bid goodbye to our colleague on Sacred Space, Lorraine Buckley. For the last number of years, in fact, since the start of the programme, actually, Lorraine joined us just after I started in the programme here myself, 10 or 11 years ago. Lorraine is moving on to a new journey in her life, and faith journey. She enters into formal discernment in the UK with a religious community. We were delighted, but Shane, as I said, and myself were delighted for her personally to be taking this huge step, but we miss her very much. She's been an inspiration and a wonderful colleague to work with during the production of the programme, both on and off the air. So Lorraine, we miss you, but know that as you seek out your response to the inner voice of the Holy Spirit, you will remain with us in spirit on the programme, and we will hold you in our prayers as you discern your next steps. So we would ask our listeners also to remember Lorraine, and indeed all those who are discerning religious life these days. We ask you all to remember them in prayer. I'd like to play a piece of music as we end this introduction to the programme this morning, one that I've always liked to play myself. It's touched Lorraine and it's touched myself from time to time. It's that beautiful song by Mark Forrest entitled You Are Mine. So Lorraine, this is from Shane and myself. Mark Forrest sings You Are Mine.
A voice came from the cloud. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. I will come to you in the silence. I will lift you from all your fear. You will hear my voice. I claim you as my choice. Be still and know I am here. And do not be afraid, for I am with you. I have called you each by name. Come and follow me, and I will bring you home. I love you, and you are mine. I am the hope for all who are hopeless. I am the eyes for those who long to see. In the shadows of the night, I will be your light. Come and rest in me. is I who've called you each by name. Come and follow me, and I will bring you home. I love you, and you are mine. I am the strength for all the despairing, healing for the ones who dwell in shame. All the blind will see, the lame will all run free, and all will know my name. I am the word that leads all to freedom. Yes, I am the peace the world just cannot give. I will call your name, embracing all your pain. Stand up now and walk and live. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. It is I who've called you each by name. Come and follow me, and I will bring you home. I love you, and you are mine. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. It is I who've called you each by name. Come and follow me, and I will bring you home. I love you, and you are mine. I love you, and you are mine.
So welcome back again to Come and See Inspirations. My name is John Keeley. Today I'm delighted to welcome onto our program Neil Foley, who is a lay preacher at the Limerick Novena, which was held recently. So you're very welcome to Limerick, Neil.
Thank you, John.
Is it your first time in Limerick, is it, by the way?
Oh, no, definitely not. I'm a big rugby fan.
Aha.
So I come to Limerick nearly every year, once a year. But as I say to people here, I'm from the other side of the line, so I'm a Leinster supporter, but I love to come to Thomond Park, and especially it's often the Christmas game. So there's some friends of mine. We come down just after Christmas, usually Stephen's Day or the day after.
Yeah.
And we come down, and it's always a great atmosphere here in Limerick for that. We love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially if Munster win. Oh, no, sorry, Munster win. We won't go there. Okay, anyway, look, Neil, thanks a lot for taking time this morning, today, to share your faith journey with us. So maybe you can fill us in a little bit on your faith journey as you were growing up in Wexford. How did that?
Well, I would have had a very typical upbringing. I would have been born into Catholic faith, but it would have been, I suppose, a very modest type of faith background. I mean, my mother's mother, my grandmother on that side, would have been very religious, but the rest of us maybe not so much, and would have had the usual religious education. Now, I did go to a secondary school that was attached to a seminary in St. Peter's in Wexford. So I got to know quite a few seminarians actually then as well. So I think maybe that had an influence that I didn't realise at the time. Mm-hmm. But then went on and on to college, and I pursued the sciences. And from that aspect, I would have become quite agnostic, to be honest. There is that quote. Well, there's two. Pasteur says it, and also Heisenberg says it. That basically, to paraphrase it, that a little bit of science leads you to atheism, but once you get further into science, it brings you back.
Okay.
So a little bit of that kind of happened, I think, on the way.
On your way, very good. And so something happened then maybe later on in your 20s, was it, in terms of bringing you back a little bit more to the Catholic faith?
Yes, I met a nice girl, as they say, and we're now married. I'm married to Helen.
It does help, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And her family would be quite involved with the church, with the Catholic Church. And in fact, her brother was ordained back in the late 90s.
Okay.
And that had quite an influence on me, even just from the point of view of seeing someone devoting themselves to a God who, I won't say I didn't believe in, but didn't really, have much time or interest in. And of course, he had big bookshelves of various books.
Yeah.
And I'd be a very curious kind of person. So, and he would be saying, yeah, you work away. So I'd pick different ones and read little bits. But one of the books that had a very big impact on me was Henry Nouwen's book, The Return of the Prodigal Son. I think a lot of people may know it. It's quite well known, but if you don't know it, I would really recommend any listeners to seek it out. And it really traces that journey of the parable, but very beautifully, in the sense of most of us, read the parable in the literal sense of the prodigal son who comes back.
Yeah.
So he goes off and he does his thing, and then he comes back with his cap in hand, and But the beauty of what Nouwen does with that story is, and that's how I would have actually initially taken it at that stage of my journey. But he progresses it so well that then he makes us look, well, actually, what about the other brother, and where do we identify as that? The brother who is bitter and annoyed at the fact of the other son returning. And Nouwen then takes it even further, but it takes a long time in your own journey. So sometimes, even when I read it first, I never got the latter parts of the book, and I'm only starting to get them now. That Nouwen actually says, well, really who we need to be is the Father, and that's where we're headed to, and that's our ultimate goal. So it's a wonderful book. It's a book that takes a lifetime to read, and when I mean it, I don't mean as in it's very easy to read, but I mean as in a lifetime to really understand. And it's a wonderful book to accompany anyone on their faith journey, really from very beginning, from where, if you're really not particularly interested in any of it, right the way through to if you're in the depths of theology. So it will cover the whole realm.
But it takes time.
It does.
As does a faith journey anyway.
Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely.
You can't just jump into. So the name of the book again?
It's Henry Nouwen is the author. He was a Belgian priest, I believe. Sorry, Dutch priest, I think, actually it was.
Yes.
Lived in Canada. But The Return of the Prodigal Son is the book. And the beautiful illustration on the front as well from Rembrandt. He's inspired by that particular painting, as well as obviously the gospel story itself, and uses that in the imagery. It's fantastic. And
isn't that true, as with all gospel stories we've heard that seem to be so familiar, we know all that, and we ignore reading it again and giving something else time to peep out of that little page.
Exactly.
For us in our life.
It's like the analogy of the onion, you've got to peel the layers,
That's
and each time you go back, there's another layer. Yeah.
And there's always something for us to learn.
Yes, always.
Part of your faith journey, I believe, you expressed you had an interest in contemplation and mysticism. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I mean, the fact that I have a scientific background, which of course is, very analytical and looks for empirical evidence and all these types of things. And yet probably the part of faith that I'm most drawn to is actually contemplation and mysticism, which, on one level is far more interested in intuition than, empirical type of learning, Maybe it's a balance, maybe it's my my own system trying to balance itself out. But I do like the idea of moving beyond words in our prayer. I think that's very important. I think prayers with words and writing our prayers, like petitions at novenas, etc., are very important. But there's also a time to move beyond that realm and to really just what I like to call rest in God. And the inspiration really, I suppose, would be Psalm 46, be still and know that I am God, and to kind of use that as an inspiration. And I enjoy meditative prayer and contemplative prayer and silent prayer and periods of silence, and I often enjoy silent retreats as well, where, it's nice just to move beyond that realm. And particularly nowadays, I think the world is so busy and we're so connected. We have these devices, which are brilliant, but we're constantly communicating, speaking, writing, texting, whatever it might be. And I think it's very important to quiet that and just to allow the natural rhythms to return. And I think that's really where you become most in tune as well with your faith journey. Yeah.
I should really step back a little bit because, after reading this particular book, did that kind of influence you to come back again into the Catholic Church? Is that the way it worked?
Yes, I mean, it would have. As I said, when I read the Return of the Prodigal Son, I very much read the first section, which really is about that return, and about, it's not what you've done, what you've thought, what you think, where you are. That stuff is not important. The important thing is just to take the step, and to trust.
From your background in terms of analytical and so on and so forth, did that fit in? That trust fit into?
Yes, I think. Funnily enough, you see, there was another book I remember taking off the shelf as well, and for the life of me now, I can't remember the author, but it was something on the lines of Jesus in the Four Gospels, and it was one of those nice apologetic books that appealed to my analytical side as well, and put forward the case of, because we're very dismissive now to say that, none of that gospel stuff happened, that's all fairy tale, that's all old mythological type stuff, as if we're talking about some kind of Greek epic, when really, when you get stuck into it, and that's what that book was really looking at, was that, this historical figure of Jesus existed, obviously nobody can prove to you about him being raised, but I like the way Tom Wright, actually, he was former Bishop of Durham, he teaches in St. Andrews now at the moment, an Anglican bishop, and he makes the point that it's just as preposterous 2,000 years ago, Jesus being raised from the dead, as it is today. Because I think we sometimes think that, back then people were kind of simpler and would have believed things and swallowed things, but no, they weren't. They were just like us. And if you said that somebody was killed and was buried and then rose again 3 days later and was walking around, they would have looked at you and laughed and said, there's something wrong. So that book went, very much more, and Tom Wright, actually, like I said, I can't remember that original, it was a little small book, but I would recommend Tom Wright for anyone who's interested in, looking historically, and, this person of Jesus, and the fact of, these historic accounts, these gospel accounts are historical. Yeah, okay. And there is, obviously there's a bigger religious layer to them, but they are historically trying to look at what happened. What actually happened. I think the beauty as well of it, and Wright speaks about this, is the fact that, none of the four of them exactly match. Which, you see, at first people kind of go, oh, well, sure, that kind of tells you, sure, that, that this is no, that actually tells you that they were witness accounts. Yes. And just like if you go into court and you have four witnesses who saw the same thing, they'll tell you different things of the same account. So it'll be the same story, but you'll get different flavors. And one person will remember this thing, and then another person will remember something. And that's really, what the Gospels get into as well. So the analytical side, I kind of delved into apologetics. And then I suppose the other side, the prodigal son, was then, that quieted, I suppose, some of that cynicism. Okay. And cynicism is very ripe at the moment. And being scientific, I would have, a certain cynicism, and I still would. I think, a little cynicism is healthy as well, to a degree. But then just kind of traveling on that journey with Henry Nouwen, the first stage of that would have been the prodigal son aspect, just the return, just look at it, almost a case of, well, what have you got to lose? Okay. Do you know? And then growing it from there, I think, really, you know.
And so from there then, I mean, what were the next steps after that now? So you've come from this agnostic sort of teenage years or early 20s, read this book and you think, yeah, I might give this a go. What was the next step for you then?
Well, for me, I love the way Donal Harrington, the former Maynooth theologian, always puts it, and I always come back to this, that he kind of looks at that there's really three aspects to faith. There's faith of the head, faith of the heart, and faith of the hands. And each of us, whilst we all express our faith in those ways, but each of us is kind of drawn in a more profound way to one or the other. And I would very much kind of be a person of a faith of the head, and maybe because of my scientific background, my personality. So I would have then really I dived in and I started reading quite a lot. You know, a lot of different theological books, really. You know, like I said, Tom Wright would have appealed a lot to me. Bishop Robert Barron appealed a lot to me. And again, I think because they kind of tackle the subjects in an intellectual way. But that was something for me.
Yes.
Now, as you grow as well in the faith, you start to realize that, well, hold on, right? This is all very well. This is feeding the faith of the head, but there's more aspects to this. And that's then when I kind of started getting more interested in the contemplative direction and the faith of the heart. And so developing that, and you know, again, reading some of the great mystics that were there, Teresa of Avila, even Saint Therese of Lisieux as well. Fantastic writings, Meister Eckhart, you know, and then even more modern than Merton really appealed to me. Thomas Merton, I just thought was, you know, fantastic insight, and an insight as well that linked to modern culture, modern life, because we were starting to move into this technological world, and Merton could see this and could see the benefits and the pitfalls, you know. And Thomas Keating then as well would be a big influence of mine, and Father Richard Rohr as well. So, you know, these kind of modern thinkers who some traditionalists would disagree with on aspects, which I think is fine, and that's what I like about Catholicism. There's room for everyone. It's the universal church, and you know, I think it's healthy to sort of to take in different aspects from all, you know. And just, I suppose, just to kind of finish the last bit, then the faith of the hands is probably the one that I'm trying to work at now. And that's, you know, in the sense of the kind of missionary work now that I'm doing, and, you know, that kind of trying to actually put my faith into action, you know, and to actually get out there to people, help people spread the faith, you know, and so that's probably where, I mean, you never stop working on all of them, but that's probably been the progression for me. And everyone's different. Everyone's going to be different, you know. That's the beauty of it.
And so would you say now that maybe your faith has developed? Obviously, over the last few years since you've been going through these various processes, reading these books, and now involved with, as you were telling me, is it the mission of the hands? Did you say it is?
The faith of the hands.
Faith in the hands.
Yeah, and you know, trying to kind of put faith into practice, really. You know.
So that meant going the extra little bit of a step, more than maybe the ordinary Joe So Catholic maybe would do. Maybe the ordinary Joe So Catholic come to a point, okay, I believe, and I'll attend Mass every Sunday, and I'll read the sacrament, and I'll listen to the gospel, and so on and so forth. You wanted to go that little bit deeper. Okay, so since then you've been involved with quite a few things. One of the things that I read about you was that you're involved with a contemporary worship band.
That's right.
Tell us about that. Where did that come?
Well, I've been singing most of my life, and I play guitar a bit as well. And, so I would have been involved with church music growing up and that. And but there was a couple of years ago, there was a very active young friar who was in Wexford, and he wanted to hold a Catholic youth conference. So went to the bishop and sorted it all out, and said he'd hold a half day, primarily actually of people giving testimony, and that type. But he wanted, to keep it upbeat and, kind of moving along. So he wanted some music as well. And he spoke to myself and a couple of friends of mine. And we got together, and it was kind of the formation of it, and we were trying to come up with a name, and we were trying to think of different things, and we came up with the mustard seeds. So
Well,
we thought it was quite apt,
not bad,
because we were coming from very small beginnings.
That's right, yeah.
And
Okay.
we thought we'd see where, what we could do with it. And it grew from that. So we used, like, we would still play traditional hymns in a kind of a folk style as such, like folk, as you'd have folk choirs and things. But we wanted to kind of try different things as well. So we took on some of the the more modern sort of worship style of music as well, and made use of those, and then started even writing our own material, and doing that as well. And we became quite involved then. One of the girls in the group wrote a wonderful pro-life song.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
And because what we had the kind of idea of, well, people at the moment, in general society are somewhat dismissive of the pro-life argument, and we kind of felt, well, is there a different way maybe we could reach people?
Yeah.
So we thought, well, could we do it through music and through song, she wrote the song Together Beat Our Hearts, which was a lovely tribute, as to mirror the heartbeat of the mother and the heartbeat of the child, and how they were actually beating together, and this was kind of the idea that we wanted to get across. And it was great. We got invited then over to the UK March for Life, which was held it was last year's one, so it was in May of last year. And we got to play there on the main stage and on that march, which was a great experience. And this year now we've been asked to play at the Irish Rally for Life, which is on in Dublin next month in July. And we're really looking forward to that. But we tried to do things a little bit differently, because it's a bit like what Bishop Barron would say. You must evangelize in the culture. So we do things a little bit differently. In a folk style, then we will take songs like Guns N' Roses' "Sweet Child of Mine," because the representation of, well, a sweet child,
Yes,
So,
yes. Okay.
and we do things like that, and like another one that we make use of now at the moment, we're working on Bob Marley, "Get Up, Stand Up." So rather than stand up for your rights, we're trying to stand up for those that don't have a voice to voice for their rights. So again, just using these more modern type songs and in our own sort of folk and Celtic style, and doing something different.
And people who would have been very familiar with those songs in years gone by will say, "Oh, maybe these guys have another thing that I might cap onto."
Yeah.
Something else you're involved with, I believe, this, and I'm interested to hear about this one, the Hook of Faith digital project. It's an evangelization project in the Diocese of Ferns.
Yes.
What's this all about? How does it work?
Well, this really originated out of the Father Billy Swan, who is in Enniscorthy in County Wexford, Diocese of Ferns. He was very instrumental in setting up adult faith formation, and actually to the point where he, along with other clergy, established a certificate in pastoral theology, which was run through Carlow Institute of Technology, who have a campus in Wexford.
Okay.
So essentially every other year there's a crop of adults go through this. About 20 to 24 people from all ages, young adults right the way up to people who are retired. And the idea being really that it's to develop and deepen your faith and have a kind of a dig into theology, and there's all the different topics around that: moral theology, spirituality, the church, sacraments, etc. And for personal formation, but then also with the idea that you would develop people to be able to participate more in their parishes, and from that, Father Billy then essentially created a group called Ferns Cafe, which was a Catholic adult formation and education cafe. And then growing out of that group essentially would hold, like talks and short seminars on different faith topics. But what was felt then was, well, with the modern age and the use of internet, we need to kind of, capture this as well, and capture it and get it out there, and have a resource that people could come back to, not just single events, So that was where then the Hook of Faith came from. And the name, we were trying to come up with a name as you do for any of these projects, you know. And what struck us was, if people are familiar with Wexford, they may know Hook Lighthouse, Hook Head,
Yes, okay.
which is the oldest operating lighthouse in the world, and used to actually, very long time ago, was the flame was lit by monks who used to protect the ships from the dangerous rocks and channel. So we felt this was a good analogy and name. It represented Ferns, our region, but then it represented also, you know, the light of Christ, and the guiding light, the light of the world. Good. So we felt it actually brought that together.
Okay.
And so we created a digital platform, www.hookoffaith.com.
Okay.
And basically there's a mix of things there. Everything from, you know, there's audio interviews that we do with different people from around the diocese, whether they, you know, whether it's purely religious or not. You know, I mean, sometimes it'll just be about other aspects as well. Okay. There's articles then there as well from people, both from clergy, from lay people. You know, a wide variety then of topics around faith, with the idea being that it's open to everyone. And we encourage anyone and everyone to make submissions to us. Obviously, it has to have some element of faith or, you know, or the natural world or that kind of way. But we like to keep it quite open for people. And again, so that it can appeal then as well to a broad spectrum, to those who are, you know, the religious who are looking for something deeper to explore, but also then for others who, you know, maybe just looking at spirituality for the first time, and it just gives them a flavour of something as well, you know.
I had a quick listen this morning just before we had a chat, and there was an interview, I think, with a man who's charged to making first communion this year, and he was just sharing his experience of being on that journey with his child.
Yes, yeah.
And I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he'd then go off and then share that with other people and encourage them. And I think there were some links there to Bishop Barron's website as well.
That's right, yeah.
There was a few quotations there from the Psalms.
Yep.
And one or two of them I know my wife, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. She should love them. I'm sure that when we get home. But so, I mean, but that again involves a bit of time, quite a bit of time, your time.
Yeah.
And that is resourced by members of the community around Ferns and around all aspects of life, coming and doing their bit to encourage others.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the word, I think, encourage. Now, if that wasn't enough, Neil, you've also you keep yourself busy because you've also become involved part-time with the Redemptorists, preaching at novenas and missions. How did that come about? Did you have any time for it? By the way, does your wife see much of you? Yeah. Okay. But anyway, how did you become involved with the rest?
Well, it's funny, like, because I actually, you know, the literal answer is I saw an ad in the newspaper and I answered it.
As we all do.
Which, you know, is obviously just the literal. But yeah, the Redemptorists for a while now have had lay missionaries to assist with their missions, their novenas. And I think it's you know, it's a great initiative, because really, you know, to me it's kind of fulfillment of the true values of Vatican II, that you know, look, it's up to each of us that are baptized. We all have our role in proclaiming the gospel, and you know, whether ordained, whether religious, whether lay, you know, whatever, even the terms, you know, I don't matter so much.
Yeah.
It's up to each and every one of us.
Yeah.
And in their most recent round of looking for people, I suppose about 3 years ago now, I just saw this ad and I said, oh, I had a word with my wife about it, and then she said, oh, yeah, you should get in touch. So, and I was in touch here with the Redemptorists here in Limerick, and basically from there, it was kind of oh, well, why don't you drop in for, I mean, I could say interview, but not an interview. You know, we sat and we had a chat, and was this something that would work for both of us? Because I have to balance with work time.
Naturally.
And so yeah, really how I kind of do it is I try to get, you know, 2 missions or novenas in per year, because obviously I have to take leave from work to do those, you know, but you know, people kind of sometimes look at me and sort of say, what, you use your holidays for it? But I think you might understand, John, and some of your listeners, that when you're doing something that you love and you feel is worthwhile, it's better than a holiday.
Of course, it is.
So
we're so fortunate to be able to have the opportunity of meeting people. And that's the thing, first of all, what sort of reaction did you get of people? Was it lay people? Was it a lay preacher went on the altar? Did you get any? Yeah, what sort of reaction did you get?
Overwhelmingly positive.
Great.
Do you know? Most people just, they find that it's refreshing. I suppose it's something different. I think it awakens in them a little bit too that really for all people, all baptized people, like, we have a role. Do you know? And I think that kind of, when they see somebody, a normal person like me, I like to think I'm somewhat normal, doing these kind of things, that I think they sort of think, well, do you know what? Like, we all have our role to play, and we all have, our duty to spread the gospel in whatever way we can. I mean, obviously it's not going to suit everyone. Not everyone likes to be standing in front of crowds of people. But I certainly would say to anyone that's interested in being involved in the likes of parish mission, novena work, to get in touch with the Redemptorists, because it really is very fulfilling if it's something that you're interested in. And
that takes an awful lot of time to prepare. Praying about it first of all, because you can't go anywhere without prayer. But after that, then, research into topics that has been agreed by the mission team, and then going off and slotting that in with the other missionary, so you're not repeating the same thing, and so on and so forth. The novena this year, here in Limerick, the theme has been called "To be Saints, Live in the Beatitudes." Maybe you might share a few thoughts about the topic yourself, then.
Yeah, I remember being asked, about speaking at the novena, and when I heard the topic, the Beatitudes, I was, delighted and kind of terrified all at the same time, because, I mean, the Beatitudes, and actually the first, and I was speaking about it on the opening evening, the first place I actually sometimes go just to sort of get a foundation when you want to speak about something is to the Catechism. Really the Catechism actually sums it up as, like, it's at the heart of Jesus's preaching. It really, and it's at the core of our faith. And I thought and it was something I discussed, because I like to weave that overall narrative from the Old Testament right the way up to where we are now. And it's something that the Catechism actually says, is that what the Beatitudes do is actually fulfill the promises that were made to Abraham, not merely for a territory or a possession, but for the kingdom. So that was part of what I was kind of speaking about, was that it no longer was just then the promise of land and a nation that the Jewish people were promised, that it actually, Jesus expanded it, that it was now the promise of the kingdom of heaven. And that's a huge step further in our whole faith and salvation, and really that's at the core of what the Beatitudes are about. And the other side of it, I think, that I was trying to portray is that the Beatitudes are very much paradoxical. Where we're being told that blessed or happy, maybe would be a more modern translation, happy are those who mourn, happy are those who are poor, happy are those who are persecuted.
To the modern world,
it doesn't make any sense to us, but, and that's the great thing about a novena like that, where there's a chance to actually sit with these, these strange paradoxical instructions, and to get the insights as well from the likes of myself and from the other preachers and and to learn that, well, really it's this idea of, as St. Paul puts it, if we suffer with him, we will be glorified with him. These opposites that, to be honest, make no sense, but once you're really caught up in life and sometimes look back, they make a lot more sense than you realize, because there's no life that's free of suffering. And really, unless you can actually apply this kind of wisdom, the wisdom of the Beatitudes, that type of suffering can make very little sense. So it's very important from a Christian perspective that we are actually able to realize that there is value in our suffering, and that there is so much more beyond it for us.
And for those of us who attend the novena, to have a topic like that, the Beatitudes, and listen to it for 9 days, the different Beatitudes, it allows that message to sink through to us, doesn't it?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So somehow, going back to what you said before, the contemplation and so on and so forth, we're allowed to come away from the world for that, just for those 9 days. And okay, we got to go to work in between and so on and so forth. But when we come back inside that church and hear the music and the ambience of the whole church, and then the preacher comes on to explain and give his few thoughts for us to take away, and we then link those with the previous days, and then for the days that are following, it's a wonderful experience to come out at the other end.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
So,
and it's something that in this busy modern world we have so little time, and it can be so hard to fit in our faith aspects
and keep it.
It's so important, and things like the novena are so important because they just give you that space, and allow you to absorb, as you said, the deeper levels of our faith. The deeper
levels of it.
Yeah.
It gives us a chance.
Yeah,
but that brings me on to maybe one of the other questions here. What do you think draw people to a novena, whereas in their thousands, hundreds, thousands every day, and yet our own local churches are only a third full?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think it follows on from what we were saying. It's a novena like that is somewhat of a mini retreat.
Yeah,
it allows that little bit of space and allows that bit of time for people that they ordinarily don't have. And I think what it also does is, there is a deep-seated spirituality within each of us.
Yes.
And despite the modern world and the busyness of it and the move towards a more secular society, Mark Patrick Hederman actually mentions it as well in his most recent book, where he says like that. He makes the point quite boldly that religion is not in trouble, he says. He says because each of us is a religious being and we know it deep down. Yeah. And I think a novena, it draws that out in people. Whilst they may not regularly be going to Mass, they have this desire, and deep within them there's a spirituality that is looking to surface. And a novena really is an opportunity for that. And also I think for people haven't lost that sense of intercessory prayer. Even though religious practice may have fallen off, it's amazing that when you speak to a lot of people, they still pray, and and very much pray for the very important things in their life, for their children, for their families, for their parents, for other things like success for a job, or a new home or things like that as well. And look, that's that's fine. That's part of living as well. So I think it appeals on those two fronts, that deep-rooted spirituality that people is ingrained in people, and also that that connection to intercessory prayer that people still have. And I think a novena just draws that out in people, and maybe as a formula actually to in terms of like the likes of regular church attendance, maybe it's something I think that maybe we have to look at in terms of to appeal to those aspects to people. You're not changing, anything or the direction within the church, but just that to use those elements of church, that deep-rooted spirituality, that intercessory prayer, and that bringing together of people for, that time out, that quiet time, that retreat aspect. And I think they're the elements that can draw people back to church, and back to the faith.
I think one of the more liberating really experiences too that people have is being at a novena and being able to take part in the singing and the praying of the prayers.
Yeah.
I've often been inside there and people say, I can't sing, but you see them inside in the novena and they're singing their heads off.
Yeah.
And these aren't maybe modern songs either. These are traditional hymns that are always sung. It's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and I mean, it's actually something that is, very much at the core of what the Redemptorists do. When you're cantering for a novena, like the idea is that we use the hymns people know. And that's why in the back of the booklets as well, you'll know practically 90% of the hymns. You'll know them, And that is the whole idea, is to get people singing. The hymns they're familiar with, hymns they're confident with, to just sing. And we make the point of, it doesn't matter whether you think you can sing or can't sing or what, it's just to sing.
And that's what we're all doing. Last question, please, and thank you again for your time. What advice would you give to someone listening to us today who might be struggling to hold on to their faith? The faith maybe that were brought up 50 years ago, with all the problems that happen within the church, but also the challenges that are posed by modern life and so on and so forth. People out there just struggling to hold on to their faith.
Yeah, and it's a real struggle, and I think it's very difficult in this modern, as I said, this fast-paced world, this constant connection, and this cynical world as well. But I think, just like what we were saying about the novena, it's really about taking personal time and personal ownership, and that that thing of ingrained spirituality, to work on that in yourself. Religion at the end of the day is really a personal journey. We can talk about institutions and we can talk about history and traditions, which are all very important, but at the end of the day, it's about your own journey. And for us Christians, it's about that journey with Christ, with Jesus. So, I mean, my point to people would be to hold on to that, to really just keep it personal. Don't, as was put forward there at the novena as well, your prayer doesn't have to be something you think God wants to hear. Your prayer is what's inside of you. And I always say to people, don't worry, God can handle it. Doesn't matter what it is. If you're angry, if you're sad, if you're lonely, if you're ecstatic, if you're happy, whatever it is, God's bigger than it all. He can handle it all if you just give it to him. And I think that's really the key to it, to have that personal spirituality. Try to take time wherever you can, just whether it's a simple prayer, whether it's a little bit of time out, whether it's trying to get to Mass, because the Eucharist is really, as a Christian and as a Catholic, it really is central if you can make time for the Eucharist, and it really is so important, and it will strengthen you. And the other aspect I would say is, if you feel brave enough, and I always say to people, don't be afraid to open the Bible and have a word. We've often, and older people say to me, we were told not to read the Bible. And I say, well, you've heard most of it if you've been going to Mass all your life. And I say, don't make the mistake of starting at the start of the book. Open the Gospels. I always say to people, if you can, just take time. As I also say, you don't even need to own a Bible. You can go online now. You can look up any passage you want. Bible Gateway is my own personal recommendation. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I think it's brilliant. And you can get an app even on your phone, and start with the Gospels. Just read them, read them slowly. Don't read them like a book. Just take a little bit. Take even just a few verses in a day. Sit with it, let it soak, and let it build your personal faith.
Neil Foley, thank you so much for sharing your journey, which has come a long way now from all those various things. I mean, how, again, getting involved with the mustard seeds and getting involved with the hope of faith, digital evangelization. You're also working with the EPA, I think, as a scientist. You're married, and you've had all these things in. We thank you again for coming to share with us and come and see Inspirations, because it's people like you that give us another little look into how people's faith journey develops, and would certainly encourage us. So, best luck for the future, and God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Bye-bye now.
God bless.
So welcome back again to the third part of Come and See Inspirations. My name is John Keeley. This part of the programme is the part of the programme where we read and reflect on the Word of God, the Sunday Gospel. And before that, there's a prayer we always pray before reading and reflecting on Scripture. Lord, we thank you for putting us in the presence of your Word, which you inspired in your prophets. May we approach this Word reverently, humbly, and attentively. May we not despise this Word, but receive all it has to say to us. We know that our hearts are closed, often incapable of comprehending the simplicity of your Word. Send your Spirit to us, so that receiving the Word in truth and simplicity, our lives may be transformed by it. Let us not be resistant, Lord. May your word penetrate us like a two-edged sword. May our hearts be open to it. Let not our eyes be closed, nor our minds wander, but may we give ourselves entirely to this listening. We ask this, Father, in union with Mary, who used to recite the Psalms, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So the Gospel for today, the 23rd Sunday in Ordinary Time, is taken from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verse 25 to 33. Great crowds accompanied Jesus on his way, and he turned and spoke to them. If any man comes to me without hating his father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, yes, in his own life too, he cannot be my disciple. Anyone who does not carry his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Indeed, which of you here, intending to build a tower, would not first sit down and work out the cost, to see if he had enough to complete it? Otherwise, if he laid the foundation and then found himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers would all start making fun of him and saying, "Here is a man who started to build and was unable to finish." Or again, what king marching to war against another king would not first sit down and consider whether with 10,000 men he could stand up against the other who advanced against him with 20,000? If not, then, while the other king was still a long way off, he would send envoys to sue for peace. So the same way, none of you can be my disciple unless he gives up all his possessions. So now we come to the end of the programme. Thank you again for joining us. We'll go out with a final piece of music, and this one is sung by Liam Lawton, and this one is entitled The Clouds Bow. So until next week, God bless you all now. Bye.
Even though the rain hides the stars, even though the mist swirls the hills, even when the dark clouds fill the sky, you are by my side. Even when the sun shall fall in sleep, even when at dawn the sky shall weep, even in the night when storms shall rise, you are by my side. You are by my side. Rise the stars at night that mirror heaven's way to you. Like the stars delight when while the saints in love and truth. Even when the sun shall fall and sweep, even when at dawn the sky shall weep, even in the night when storms shall rise, you are by my side. You are by my side. Held in memory the thoughts we have of yesterday. May our future be a resting place where love will stay. Even though the rain hides the stars, even though the mist swirls the hills, even when the dark clouds fill the sky, you are by my side. Even when the sun shall fall in sleep, even when at dawn the sky shall weep,